At the age of 19, Alok Shetty was already making waves for completing a multi-specialty hospital in Bangalore while still studying architecture at RV University. His practice, Bhumiputra architecture, is focused on out-of-the-box solutions in architecture and sustainable living. While at Columbia University in New York, he created the award-winning Black Box Theater, an idea that transforms shipping containers into auditoriums. Named one of the 30 under 30 Young Achievers by Forbes magazine, Shetty's practice focuses on marrying smart design with a commitment to sustainability. Architecture for him is the fusion of innovation and practicality. He has applied his black box concept to the idea of mobile, foldable health clinics and schools transported on trains.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the architect and principal of Bhumiputra Architecture, Mr. Alok Shetty.
Good evening. First of all, I'd like to start by saying thank you to the Zumba guys for bringing you all up to speed. I'm going to take a little time of y'all, but it's going to be really interesting, so just bear with me. Like this, I'm going to start by, hold on. Can we have the slides? Yeah. So, I started my architecture career when I was 19 years old. I was studying in my third year of undergrad and heard about a design competition to design hospitals. And at that point, it was just a regular, conceptual competition. Took part and ended up winning the competition. But what they loved about the design was how practical it was, coming from a student. So they called back and said, listen, we'd like for you to come on board and design the real thing. And at that point, I had no architectural license. I had none of it. And I said, yeah, I'll do it. We hired a local architect to sign off on all the documents. And before we started this, I spent a year in hospitals. I spent one whole year in hospitals interviewing doctors, hospital staff, nurses, administration, and asked them what was wrong with the existing design of hospitals. In India, at that point, this was in 2005, there was still no international practices when it came to the design of hospitals. And after a year of spending time in operation theaters, in ICUs, in hospitals all over the country, we started to design it. By the time I was 20, we had what is now considered India's first state-of-the-art, internationally accredited hospital. And all future models of hospitals were then molded on this model. And this was a great learning experience working with doctors on my very first project, because doctors approach problems in a very simplistic manner. There is a very famous saying called Occam's razor, which says, the simplest solutions are most often the right solutions. And they use this to diagnose patients. You know, when something is wrong, you don't immediately think cancer. You start with a common cold, and then you go as it is. So we use those same design principles in our architecture firm going forward. So I'd like to take you through about 4 or 5 projects, starting from projects that are only $100 to $100 million, and how we've applied those same principles to make sure that we provide a better quality of living for different economic societies. So these are a few more pictures of the hospital that was done back in 2005. Fast forward to my master's program at Columbia University. TED Talks approached Columbia and gave us a design problem. They said, if you were to have a TED conference or a conference like this in the middle of nowhere for 250 people, how would you design something, or how would you design the infrastructure to hold that kind of a conference? So me and 2 of my classmates, Nathan and Shay, we came up with what we call the Black Box Auditorium. Ideally, it had to be deployable because it had to be sent all over the world. It had to be low cost because it could be scaled. All-inclusive, which means it generated its own electricity. And it had to be flexible because you had different kinds of terrain all over the world, and it had to feature for that. So we came up with a shipping container because we knew that the logistics of moving a shipping container around the world had already been figured out. You could take it by land through 18-wheeler trucks, by sea on the back of a ship, and you can airlift it. So essentially, there's nowhere a shipping container could not reach. And this is what we came up with. Could we play the video, please? Sorry. Thank you. Can we go back to the slides? Yeah. So what is essentially a 40-foot shipping container converts itself into a 250-seat auditorium in less than 4 hours. And essentially, you could have a conference in the middle of a desert because we've designed a solar-powered fabric canopy that can generate its own electricity and stores it in lithium-ion batteries, and that kind of powers the whole system. So Doris, for next year's, you can call me up for the next summit, and we put it in this. So we've also designed it to be flexible so you can use it as a half configuration or a full configuration based on how many people you want it to serve. And you can use the space underneath it. And essentially, it's like an IKEA catalog. You just know that there are so many parts. Part A goes into part B, and it comes with an instruction manual, so with very little text, and it's more pictographic. So it's very easy for people to understand and assemble it. This project got a lot of good press around the world, and when I moved back to India, I realized that even though this has a lot of implementation, we kind of pivoted on it, and we used India's largest network, which is our railways. And what we've done is now we've taken a train compartment module, just like a shipping container, and we've designed portable health clinics. So what happens is a train goes to a very rural village. The last compartment is dropped off. It opens up. It administers vaccines, healthcare, routine checkups. It closes up. The next train comes, picks it up, takes it to the next village. And so we're doing that now with schools and clinics. And a lot of people from TED to captains of industry have come to us saying they want to fund it. But we're like, no, in India, labor is cheap, and we'll do it ourselves. So you should see that roll out by the end of the year. Thank you. So I moved back to India in 2011, and the minute I moved back, I started Bhumiputra up again in full force. I started it at age 19, but it was just me for a very long time. Just me and my laptop saying we had an office. I made my own cards and everything. But once I came back, we started in earnest. And the first thing we decided was with every new project that the firm got, we would adopt one underprivileged child's education and go on from there. So we started with Rakesh. So what is one child is now 30 children that we've adopted. And what we do with this is, over 4 years now, we've just started to understand how they live, and we've started speaking to their families, and they have very inhospitable living conditions. So the next step as architects was to try and see, is there a way that we can redesign homes for the, completely poor people in India, in the slums. So that led us to start the slum housing redesign project. What we did was we started with a case study. So this is a Google Map image of one of the software tech parks in Bangalore. I'm from Bangalore, which is like the IT hub of India. And you have these huge tech parks all over. They spend millions of dollars on it. So I've highlighted in green the actual tech park, and behind it in pink is the slum families that are all construction workers who helped build that. So what we realized was almost 95% of people who live in these slums are migrant construction workers. They move every 4 or 5 years from one place to the next in search of work, which is why they don't invest in homes, because they know they have to move every 5 years. So automatically, that set up the parameters for us to design. What if we design a house that you carry with you? Can it be done? So, because if you can carry it with you and it's low cost, obviously they're going to invest in it. So we started, again, just like how the black box, we started with a kit of parts. And we realized because they're construction workers, they're very, very familiar with construction materials. So we approached large construction companies and told them, at the end of every project, give us 5% of your scrap materials. Your scaffolding, your plywood, your shuttering sheets, which you use for concrete, give it to us. And what we did is we designed a home for less than $300, which can be assembled, disassembled, is flood-proof, and is disaster-proof. And I'd like to take you through the first set of prototypes that we did, and then I'm going to take you through. So how it works is you have a metal scaffolding base, which can be propped up on stilts. So it doesn't matter what the terrain is. If it's a slope, and if it rains, water goes right underneath it. Then you start with the floor. We can have MS sheets, which is mild steel, again a scrap material. Then we set up the scaffolding, which is the framework. Then we do galvanized aluminum roof sheets. And then we start bamboo panels. So we take bamboo, we strip it down, and we do weaved wall patterns so that you have a lot of light and ventilation through. And then you have polycarbonate sheets on the side, which allow a lot of light in. And then again, a bamboo with a sliding door in the front. So this whole thing can be set up in less than 2 hours with just 2 people. And it costs less than $300, which is about what they make in a month. So if they were to save over about a year, without any government subsidy, without any of those things, they'll be able to afford this, which they can assemble and disassemble and carry with them. So we started pitching this to different government organizations within India, and nobody heard about it. So what I did was, we have a large-scale architecture firm as well. So from the money that we got from the bigger projects, some of which I will be showing you now, I funded 100 homes myself. And we started building those 100 homes. We went into slums all over India, and we started distributing it to the children who we adopt. We gave it to their families. And they started using it, and the results were incredible. The quality of light, see, if you look at this image, you can see you can't look into the home, right? But if you're inside the home, that's the beautiful quality of light. What happened next was magical. When our own government ignored us, something interesting happened. Time magazine heard about it all the way across in the US, and they came to us and they started this new thing called Next Generation Leaders, and they featured me on it. And the day after this article came out, the media outlets had a ball. Everybody was like, Indian named next leader of tomorrow and this and that. We're so proud of you. And the next day, I started meeting with all the government organizations in India. And they were like, you have to do this, you have to do that. How many have you done? Can we visit it? And they started looking at it, and they realized that so far we had a model that was tested, it was tried, it was tested, and it was working really well. And they've agreed now for us to go ahead and build 50,000 homes over the next year, which is a great step. So our approach now is not just to solve housing as a standalone. What we're trying to do is address sanitation. A lot of people in India don't have access to clean toilets. They don't have access to clean drinking water. They don't have the basic needs of healthcare and education. So we're working with a lot of partner organizations who are providing us solar-powered lights, solar-powered cook stoves. We've designed a low-cost blanket that has newspaper as insulation. And we're working with a firm that starts up the very first water ATM. So basically, we dig bore wells, we filtrate the water, and then everybody's given like an ATM card, and for 5 Indian rupees, you get 20 liters of clean drinking water every day. So that's our next step going forward on this project. So I'd like to take you through some of the bigger projects that help pay for the smaller projects, but are also very interesting in design, trust me. I got a call after the Time article and all that. I got a call from a billionaire who I won't name, who said he's starting up a very huge manufacturing, prefabricated manufacturing facility just the outskirts of Bangalore. And he said, I want a building, which is the R&D center, to be the crown jewel of it. You have an unlimited budget, do what you want, but the minute I look at the building, it should look like it's prefabricated. That is the only brief. So we did a lot of program analysis and sketching, and then I presented this to him, and I said, what if I designed a building for you that looked like Lego blocks? Would you like that? And he started laughing. He's like, yeah, that's perfect. Let's do that. So we actually started working out the program. So I'm going to take you through a series of diagrams over the next 3 or 4 projects with how we approach design so it's easily understandable. We start with your entries, then we define programs. So first you have the cafeteria, showrooms, community space, cores. So it keeps going. And you can start seeing it take shape as a Lego building block. And what we've done is we've designed it on a hierarchy. So the most public access is on the lower floors, and as you go higher, it gets better. And you have these terraced gardens around. So we actually went out and bought Legos. And we built the thing in Legos because we know that the compressive to tensile strength of Legos is the exact same as his prefabricated panels. So if we actually built it with Legos and it stood, there was a fairly good chance that it would stand in real life. So we worked backwards with the structural consultants, and we've just started the project. And so these are a few images of the R&D center with parametric roofs, their office spaces, at night, and finally in the backdrops of the hills. So needless to say, he was thrilled, we were happy, we got what to do, we got to play with Legos again. And so now this project is scheduled for completion in a couple of months. Coming to another big project of ours. So we started in earnest in 2011, and at that point it was just me and maybe 2 or 3 other people. And we got a call from another really big company, probably the world's 3rd largest steel manufacturer. They had just bought the Bangalore football franchise, and they wanted to build an incredible stadium. And we had not even designed a football pitch, forget a stadium. And they said, he watched one of my talks, and he was like, would you like to, there's absolutely no guarantee you're going to get the project, but would you like to pitch for this project? So I said, sure, who else is in there? And they're like, it's an international competition. There are about 70 international firms taking part. I said, sure, why not? So I'd like to take you through our design, and hopefully you'll like it. So it's a very tight site. It's about 9 acres. And they wanted to fit a 25,000-seat football stadium, a 250-room hotel, and mall and retail space, all in this one place. So what we did first was, because we did a traffic analysis, because roads in India are very narrow, a lot of traffic, not unlike another city, which is your city. So we did a lot of traffic analysis, trying to understand which are the one-ways, the two-ways, and things like that. And then we did massing. How much space does a 25,000-seat stadium take? And then we put the tower to the north, because the south would have cast a shadow. And then we took the rest of the space and we just extruded that mass. Now, it seems like a pretty straightforward project. What makes it different? There's a huge neighboring community of, it's residential. So it's a lot of homes. And you don't really want to intrude on their peace and quiet. So what we did was we took that green part, we bent the roof of it so that you could actually climb up the side of the building and you had a public park all on top of the stadium. So if you go for your morning walk, you can go for a walk on the road, climb up the side of a building, go for a run on top of a stadium and come back down. So that was the proposal. And then we started designing how the entries were, how to go into the basements. We had various end users. So again, we started to build it up. First the stadium, and then you had the mall and the retail space, and then you had the roof on top, and then you had the hotel tower. So we started with the massing exercises, game day, and then you had LED lights built in so you can change the atmosphere, concerts, your concession stores, football locker rooms, VIP restaurants, the hotel, the VIP boxes. Yeah. So that was the stadium. So what happened with that project? We ended up winning the project. Okay, I'm told I've got to wrap up in a minute, so I think I may have to jump through a few projects. Right, so this is another modular school project where they wanted to design in 2 stages, so I'm just going to quickly run through these. Again, you get the gist of it. What we do is we first understand user base, the end user, and then we design based on phase-wise rather than what the building should actually look like. It's more important how it performs. And then, so this is, again, the interesting thing about this project was we designed it with electroluminescent louvers. So during the time of the day when the sun moves, it changes color. The louvers change color. So this is another really cool project. And I think I'm going to wrap up. Our final project, I'm just going to run through this. We just finished, made out of bamboo. So this is for the children that we started adopting. We're at 200 now with our partner organizations. So we've just started their first school project for them built out of bamboo and laterite. So thank you. Thanks. That's all my time.